sometimes get overlooked. And if you look at what is going right, you have the confidence to know that you can build on that for the future. Frankly, that's a whole lot more fun to talk about than the things that are going wrong. This shows you our forecast of U.S. gross domestic product. RIO simply means adjusted for inflation. The blue line is the forecast that I had in place in September of 2013. I raised my outlook for 2016 and 2017. I'm a little bit more confident that we're going to be having good times out there in 2016 and 2017. For U.S. industrial production, I had built in previously, this was over a year ago, a little bit of a decline in U.S. industrial production activity in the second half of 2014. I've since taken that away. Leading indicators are suggesting, and retail sales activity is suggesting that we don't have to worry about that little tiny slump happening. It's more of a flat spot before we get back into some rise. Manufacturing is incredibly important to the country. It's important to this region, as Larry's charts were showing you. I can't wait to show you one chart that shows that manufacturing is increasingly important to the country as a whole. One of the things that you said, Larry, and this is the disadvantage of going before me, is that I listen to everything you say and I absorb it because I'm a geek. And one of the things that you said is, and you used the word allegedly, moving more and more toward a service economy. One of the charts I can't wait to show you is that allegedly was the right word, because we here in the United States are once again becoming more and more of a manufacturing economy. And that changes the game going forward. It changes everything you thought you knew about the future of the United States of America. And it's changing it in real time. This is a comparison of the gross state product year-over-year percent change for Wisconsin versus the U.S. versus the Midwestern states. And it shows a similar story to what Larry was showing you. Wisconsin here is in red, and you can see that we're running beneath the U.S. experience, or running beneath the Midwest experience, and that's fairly normal for us, at least to run below the U.S. experience. We're not one of your stronger than average states in the Union, where we tend to experience the same business cycles, but not as dramatically on the upside, or not as volatile on the upside anyways. So we have our work cut out for us here in this area. Our unemployment rate compared to the national experience has a very direct positive correlation, as you can see off this chart. But what's really cool about this chart is, while the unemployment rate has been coming down at the U.S. level, it's already been much lower than that, than the U.S. experience here in Wisconsin. We're pushing on 6% unemployment now in Wisconsin. I tell you what, folks, at 6%, you're looking at virtual full employment in this area. I wasn't at all surprised to find out that you are not as satisfied with the quality of the labor pool that you are confronted with. Because you've already hired the better qualified people, you're now looking deeper into the labor pool to find those qualified, talented future managers or supervisors or machine tool operators. One of the take-homes from that slide that Larry had and this slide here is this. If you are not investing heavily in the training programs in your company to make sure people have the skill sets that you require them to have, if that isn't a major focus for you over the next 4 years, you are in trouble. Because you are going to need more and more skilled people. And they're not going to just come waffling in the door to you. You have to turn them into skilled people, and that's a major commitment that you must be willing to make. It takes dollars to make that happen, but when you look at this chart and look at where that brown bar is for Wisconsin, we're there, folks. We have to be making that commitment as individuals, as individual companies. This is how the United States, stepping back a little bit from Wisconsin, fits into the world scheme of things. I showed you how Wisconsin related to the U.S. I want to show you how the U.S. relates to the world in terms of size. You're looking at global GDP in the United States. We're at 21.9% of the world's economy. We're huge. By way of comparison, last year we were at 21.7%. So we've actually grown in relative importance. We've grown in size. We're not losing our edge, folks. We've grown. Hear that word. Yes, China has grown to become number 2. But anybody who deals with national and international statistics knows that you have to be careful about interpreting Chinese statistics. They don't always reflect the most accurate data. In fact, the Chinese government themselves very rarely uses the official Chinese statistic, but they are likely number 2. Japan, which had been number 2, is now number 3. Germany, which has been number 4, is still number 4 and will likely always be number 4. Good old Germany. Count on them. Number 4. Don't even get the bronze medal anymore. France is hanging around, followed by the Brits. The big movers of late have been Brazil and Russia. They have both surpassed Italy in the last year in terms of rankings. Like that was hard to do, but they passed Italy. India went above Canada. Any Canadians here, by the way, or anybody of Canadian descent? Wow, nobody? Really? Or you just can't put it around? Oh, one. One. Thank you very much. I would have thought this part of there'd be more than one. Well, welcome. And I said process as process for you, man. As you look at the world scene, there's 3 things that matter most. There are 3 megatrends that matter most. The first one being demographics. The world is going to gain about 1 billion people between now and 2050. But it's not going to be an even distribution. Some countries are going to win, some countries are going to lose. In the United States today, we have about 312 million Americans. We're going to grow by about 100 million. That's an amazing % increase in our population. And not nearly every country in the world can say that. In fact, China's going to be losing people. Japan is losing people. Germany is losing people. The France economy is losing people. The Brits stopped doing it a long time ago. They're losing people rapidly. Brazil going up. Russia's going down. You know how many Russians there are today? 142 million Russians. 312 million Americans, 142 million Russians. You know what that means? We could take them. Get out here! I'm taking this from you. India is growing, Canada is growing, Australia is growing, and Mexico is growing. The second major trend that you have to consider is the fact that there is going to be inflation in the future. Now, I'm not going to take the time to develop that thought. It's just, if you can live with that as a presumption for a moment. It's not going to be hyperinflation like a lot of doom and gloomers are forecasting, but there is going to be more inflation in the future. And history is very clear. Countries that are well endowed with natural resources tend to do exceedingly well, or better anyways, during periods of inflation. And here in the United States, we're mightily blessed when it comes to natural resources. Much more so than China. Japan's got nothing. Germany ran out a while ago. France. When was the last time France exported anything but Ubers? Really? Brazil, great natural resources. Italy, not so much. Canada, yes. India, yes. Australia, yes. And Mexico, yes. Those are the winners in the future. And the third dynamic that we look at tends to be government involvement. And not so much the absolute level of government involvement, but the change in government involvement. How much money is the government going to want to take away from its citizens? What's the tax outlook? Discretionary income outlook? And here in the United States doesn't fare quite as well because we expect, because of our national debt, that the government's going to want to be taking more and more money out of our pockets and deciding what to do with that money. And that's not a particularly healthy trend. But let me summarize all of those megatrends and what they mean in this way for you. The United States is the world's #1 economy. It has been for at least the last 50 years. And everything that we look at the Institute for Trend Research tells us that the U.S. is going to be the world's #1 economy for at least the next 2 generations, which means the next 50 years, rather, for the next 50 years. We are #1, we're going to stay #1. Stop worrying about the economic future of our kids and our grandkids. We're making the decisions now, we're doing the things now that we need to be doing so that they will be in the world's greatest, strongest, freest economy for the next 50 years. Stop worrying about them and start demanding that they get a job and get out of the house. Get in the booth. huge take-home from today's presentation. Sorry, son, but you got to move. Objectively, we look at leading indicators all the time at ITR, and most of them are moving up. Even the ones that aren't moving up, like the ITR leading indicator, proprietary index that we have, or the Purchasing Managers Index, which has shown some weakness of late, they're not showing that the economy is going to break down. They're just showing that the economy is going to slow down. Central bankers around the world seem to be obsessed with deflation rather than inflation, at least for the next 5 years. That means expect very aggressive monetary policies to prevail. Money supply growth, very low interest rates, loosey-goosey policies. That isn't likely to change, and that helps keep us growing. Employment is rising. You know, we can argue whether it's rising fast enough. It depends on the survey, it depends on the month, but employment is rising. Let me give you the key number when it comes to employment. What you want to be reading in the newspaper or hearing on the radio is that at least 150,000 jobs were created in any given month nationally. If you read 150,000 jobs, celebrate. The economy's done its job. We're growing faster than our demographics in terms of job creation. Anything less than 150, it's not been such a good month. And the more you string not so great months together, the more likely you are going to be seeing the economy at least slow down. And in December and January, we did not maintain 150,000 jobs. Retail sales rising here and across most of the planet. Here in the United States, what you want to hear is that retail sales are up 2.5% or better year over year, adjusted for inflation. And right now, we're up 4.2% year over year. 3.2 if you take out automobiles. Consumers out there spending money. Housing is on its way up, and non-residential construction is on its way up. How many of you are involved in construction? Can I see a show of hands if you're involved in construction? I got good news for you. You got nothing to worry about until probably 2019. I don't think 2017, if you're a home builder, is going to be all that great, but we're going to get a little bit of a rebound within in 2018. We don't have any real problems baked into our outlook for construction until 2019. So assuming that there is going to be year-on-year growth for you in the construction industry, and think of the ripple effect that that's going to have, you really have to worry about whether you have enough people who know how to work a nail gun or run wire or put a straight pipe in place. Because the rest of us are counting on you to find people who can put in straight pipes. There are some concerns, obviously, the stock market. January was not a good month for the stock market. And I have some concerns about the stock market going forward. We'll touch upon those. Just let me lay this thought upon you. Because most people get it wrong. They think the stock market is an excellent leading indicator to the economy. And that isn't true. The stock market's only a fair leading indicator to the economy. And where it breaks down primarily is in the dynamic relationship. You can have a 25–30% decline in the stock market without seeing a recession develop in the economy. You can have a 10% decline in the stock market and see an actual recession develop in the economy. It's just not that good. The bond market is much better. Taxes are rising, whether you're to the right of Rush Limbaugh or to the left of Nancy Pelosi, I don't care. You have to come to grips with the reality that taxes are rising. Because our polls generally don't know what else to do. They can't effectively cut spending in today's climate. And for that reason, at ITR, we believe that there's no near-term solution to our fiscal debt, that our national debt issues, which are likely to abate for 2014, 15, and 16, that's already baked into the pie, are going to start getting worse again beyond 2016. But the fact that there's some near-term moderation means that we're going to take our eye off that particular ball. And I think we've already seen that with the way Congress handled the increase in the debt ceiling. Here's the ITR leading indicator in brown compared to the overall U.S. industrial production measure, which is how we look at the overall economy. And if this technology is working, I'm going to time shift the leading indicator forward by 11 months. Because our indicator leads that blue line by 11 months. Now the blue line is a 12/12 rate of change, as it says in the legend. And what that means is we're taking the annual average industrial production index as of December 2013, we're comparing it to the annual average index as of December 2012. When January 14 becomes available, we'll take that annual average index, compare it to January 2013. Whenever you see that blue line, which is the rate of change line, above 0, it means we're growing. We're above year-ago levels of activity. The recessions there that you can see are the early 1980s, early 1990s, 2000, 2001, and 2008, 2009. Right now we're growing, we're running above that 0 line. What the brown line is showing us is that that blue line is likely to take a bend downward. It's likely to bend it toward the 0 line as we go through 2014 and on into early 2015 at least. We do not have an upturn as yet in our ITR leading indicator. I said monetary policy is likely to remain aggressive, and one of the reasons is because there's virtually no inflation out there, at least as mentioned by the Consumer Price Index. That's showing you a 1.2% inflation rate using rates of change, either a monthly comparison to a year ago, that's the 112, or the annual average comparison. There's no CPI inflation out there. So the Fed has carte blanche to do whatever they want, really. That's good news and bad news, which is one of the things people hate about economics, because it's never clearly one thing or the other. I think this is probably understating the inflation case that really exists out there for you and I as business owners and business managers. Because this isn't taking into consideration the wage increases you and I are having to pay, the health insurance costs that you and I are having to pony up. None of that's taken into consideration in the CPI. The way that I look at some employment numbers, and Larry touched upon this also, is construction industry employment. I use it as a bellwether for the economic health of a region. And on the lower portion of the chart, you have numbers like Larry was showing. That's the 12-month moving average in blue, the 3-month moving average in brown. And you can see it has been one nasty decline. We're just getting underway in terms of recovery. The upper portion of that chart shows you the rates of change, and that's scaled on the left underneath ROC. And the fact that the ROCs, the rates of change, are moving up on the right-hand side of my chart is good news. The numbers aren't great. On an annual basis, we're up 1.2%, but see the brown number at 1.4? The fact that that 312 is running above the 1212 is good news. It means that there's momentum building for rise. For those of you who are saying, looks like 14 is going to be better than we had in 2013, this chart is agreeing with you using objective data. And when I break it down to Appleton, it gets even more positive. Look at the upper rates of change, that brown 7.4, which means for the last 3 months, construction industry employment is up 7.4% from 1 year ago. For the last 12 months, we're up 2.5%. Clearly, we're seeing an upcycle in the rates of change, which means we're seeing an upcycle in the data. Your construction folks should be feeling busier. You're part of this number. And if you're not, it's probably because you're in the wrong market segment, and I encourage you to think about getting into other market segments. We are back, or at least we are coming back. And that trend is going to persist for the next 4 years anyways. And while there is very little consumer price index inflation, there is wage inflation. You're looking at average hourly wages for production and non-supervisory employees. And we're up 2.3% year over year. And 2.3% doesn't sound like a big number, but inflation is up only 1.2%. So we've had a 1.1% increase in real incomes for our employees. And if we're not passing that cost increase through to our consumers, guess what? It's coming right off of our bottom line. It's what's taking away from our bottom line. For those of you that were surprised that 2013 wasn't as profitable as you thought, maybe this is part of the reason. And notice that once these trends get going, particularly when you're looking at a positive economic environment, they tend to keep going for several years. What we are going to be confronted with as business managers and owners is the fact that our labor costs are going up, compounded, in an environment where we're expected not to put through price increases to our customers. And that means you have a very real margin squeeze coming at your bottom line. One of the big battles that you are going to have to fight over the next 4 years is how to keep your employees happy, how to keep them on board without losing your profitability, without your margin being squeezed. That's why you get the big bucks. It's not going to be easy, because if you don't figure this conundrum out, then while we're going to have strong revenue growth over the next 4 years, we will not have strong profit growth over the next 4 years. Revenues are vanity, profits is sanity. It's the profit side of things that you need to really work on. Interest rates, as I mentioned, are likely to stay low. That red line is a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. The blue line is the federal funds rate. Federal funds rate is running at essentially zero. Here's my daring forecast of the morning for you. You ready? I bet you zero is the floor. I bet you it doesn't go any lower than zero. That's it. Right there. Zero. We don't think mortgage rates are going to be going up much, if at all, in 2014 either, because we are going to be seeing a slowdown in consumer activity. But they will be going higher again in 2015, 16, and 17. This is a sweetheart time to be going into debt. This is a sweetheart time to be borrowing as much fixed money as you possibly can. If you haven't already started hugging your banker, start immediately after this meeting. You want to borrow as much money as you possibly can and invest it in inflation-proof assets going forward. And that means you are borrowing as much money as you can to buy real estate, to buy other businesses. Not toys, but wealth-creating assets. How much money should you borrow? My friends, if you're sleeping through the night, you have not borrowed enough money. You should be pausing